Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 28th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. I'm Planning and Zoning Commission Chairman James Kirkpatrick. At this time, I'd like to ask that all cell phones and electronic devices be turned off or put on silent. Please note this meeting is being recorded. For those of you that have not been with us before, the Planning and Zoning Commission is comprised of 7 members. 5 members are residents of the city of Burlington and are appointed by the City Council. 2 members are residents of the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction and are appointed by the Alamance County Commissioners. For tonight's public comments to address the commission in this meeting, please wait to be called upon by the chair and address the commission from the podium. Comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and anyone who speaks must give their name and address for the record. Press and media can ask questions to the commission during the public comment period. As a reminder, the Planning and Zoning Commission is an advisory body that makes recommendations to the City Council. No decisions are final at the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings. Additionally, in the event of a tie vote 3-3, the motion fails. Before we get the quorum, when we're doing comments, if somebody makes a point and you have the same point, we don't need to hear the same point over and over and over again. Like if someone says something about traffic, we got it. We don't need to hear traffic every time someone steps up to speak. And you're limited to 3 minutes. I'd like to confirm that all the commission members and staff members on the agenda are present. Please conduct a roll call of the commission and staff, please.
Okay. Chair Kirkpatrick?
Present.
Vice Chair Beasley?
Here.
Member Roan is absent. Member Mills?
Present.
Member Spadaccini?
Here.
Member Rayner?
Present.
Member Hill is absent. Member Britton? Absent. And Member Sanders?
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum.
All right. Any conflicts of interest on the agenda tonight from anybody on the commission? No conflict? All right. Approval of the minutes for the meeting held March 24th, 2025. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting?
Motion to accept.
There's a motion. Second?
No second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item motion carries. Item number 4, rezoning 25-002. Henry Segovia, applicant, to present a request to rezone property from heavy industrial HI to high density residential HDR districts to the high density residential HDR district. The property is 0.87 acres in size and is located at the south side of Railroad Street, east of the intersection with Queen Anne Street, addressed as 0 Railroad Street and consisting of Alamance County Tax Identification Number 180105. Mr. Segovia, or who's present to speak to this?
The applicant is present. I'll be happy to introduce the item.
Okay, perfect. Please, thank you.
Great. So on your map that's shown, the zoning map, the parcel in question is shaded in the teal shade. It's sort of an irregular shaped parcel that has frontage both on Railroad Street and Queen Anne Street. Queen Anne Street is a paper street, but technically the property is a corner lot. It is currently split zone. You can see by the purple and the orange shade, the property is located in the high density residential zoning district. That's the orange shade, and the heavy industrial zoning district, which is the purple shade. The future land use area for the future land use designation for this area is split between traditional residential, kind of coincides with the residential zoning area, as well as business park. Light industrial, this property is currently vacant. The area around this parcel primarily is residential to the west and vacant, as well as there are some industrial uses within the vicinity. It's a fairly heavily wooded tract of land. And staff is recommending the rezoning request. Essentially, we find that it is consistent with the residential land use designation. Keeping a property like this split zoned, even if it was, let's say, different kinds of industrial zoning or commercial zoning, split zoning makes it difficult for a property to be developed. It is highly irregular shaped along that portion of the industrial zoning anyway, and fairly, would be fairly difficult to develop under that current zoning. So staff is recommending the rezoning to the entire property for high-density residential. That would allow for additional infill residential development to occur consistent with the zoning that's already in place in that area. Should the rezoning be approved, the applicant or any future developer would have to develop in accordance with the Unified Development Ordinance standards. But included in your staff report, we are recommending approval consistent with option number 1 on your consistency statement sheet. The applicant is in the audience, Mr. Segovia, if you would like to ask any specific questions of him.
Mr. Segovia, would you come to the podium? Is there anything that you would like to say?
Hi, good night. I'm Henry Segovia, and no, just my planning on that one, just try to see if I can get one zoning, not a split zone on that property. It's my only concern right there.
Questions from the commission?
I guess I got a question for Jamie. What will be allowed with high-density residential apartments or?
So there would be, just like any of the other residential zoning districts, single-family detached, single-family attached, like townhomes, and multifamily development. I think I included on,
You only got 4.8 acres, so something you can do.
the density would range depending upon the type of residential development that would occur. Basically, for high-density residential, it would range from 7 units per acre to up to 20 units per acre. So it just would depend on what type of development. We don't have any development plan, as you know, we can't consider that.
Questions over here?
Yeah, Jamie, I just got a quick question. So looking at the map here, the gaps between the parcels, I'm assuming that is going to be future right away for the city to put in any sort of roads or thing like that. Is that correct, or am I interpreting incorrectly?
The white to the right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Let me first correct, it could go up to 30 units per acre under the high-density residential. So that area that's shown in the white is essentially what's considered to be a paper street. It's a street on a map, but it has not been developed.
Okay.
So it is not something that would, it could potentially be developed down the road. However, it's not a requirement, if there's access, for development to occur through another property or that property that abuts a public street. It wouldn't be necessary to improve that. However, like I said, we don't have a plan in place, so I can't give you any additional guidance on where roadway connections would occur, or where specific development would occur on the property.
Fair enough, thank you.
But the railroad street is a public street.
Mhm.
And I can see it wrong.
Correct.
Going back to you said it was now 30 units per acre?
Under the current zoning, where that orange shade is, you could have a range between 7 units per acre, that would be for single-family detached, traditional subdivision, or individual lots, or up, and then for townhomes, it would go up to 9 units per acre. And for multifamily, you have a density up to 30 units per acre. Again, on a site like this, or any site, you would have to take into consideration parking requirements, buffer requirements, open space requirements. So all of those, and other stormwater controls, all of those different things take into consideration, you know, the amount of land that you ultimately can develop for homes.
I just have one question to you. How does this happen? How does this happen in that I see his piece that's split zone, the track next to it's split zone, there's multiple other tracks there that are split zone. How,
It's not uncommon. It can be achieved through a variety of ways, and,
I mean, this was all obviously done before you got it. I mean, this is probably old as,
and, you know, within the city of Burlington and other areas, you have traditionally, we've got some industrial zoned land that may have been, attached to historic uses
Right.
along the railroad, or other buildings that may have come down. So you've got that trend along the railroad in Burlington per se. Under today's standards, you may not necessarily have those types of uses, abutting residential,
Right.
land uses. But I would imagine that this is a, carryover from way back when, even maybe prior to when zoning was in place.
sure. Any more questions? Thank you, thank you. Any more questions?
Just wait to see if anybody has any.
Anyone in the room on this right-hand side here to speak on this rezoning matter?
I have a question whenever it's appropriate.
I'll let you go last. Anyone here on the left-hand side, my left rather, that has a question on this or would like to speak on this rezoning matter?
I'm just wondering what the applicant does have in mind for the property. What do you plan?
I'm planning to put a duplex or a triplex on the piece of land.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Have at it.
Make a motion to recommend approval of the request to rezone property from heavy industrial and high-density residential districts to high-density residential district. The property is 0.87 acres in size and is located on the south side of Railroad Street, east of the intersection with Queen Anne Street, addressed as 0 Railroad Street and consisting of Alamance County Tax Identification Number 180105. The motion is based upon the consistency of the proposed rezoning with the comprehensive plan and that the future land use map in section 4 land use of the comprehensive plan calls for this area to be traditional residential. The request is compatible with the land use plan. The current split zoning of high-density residential and heavy industrial and the fact that the property is irregular in shape creates an impediment for the development of the property. The proposed rezoning of the property to high-density residential would allow for additional infill development to occur consistent with the city's traditional residential designation to the south. This action is reasonable and in the public interest in that the comprehensive plan calls for residential uses in the area. The request is compatible with other residential zoning and land uses in the area. The proposal is consistent with the future land use designation. Any future development will be required to comply with the city's unified development ordinance.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Can we roll call the vote, please?
Sure. Chair Kirkpatrick,
Approve.
Vice Chair Beasley,
Approved.
Member Mills,
Approved.
Member Spaccini,
Approve.
Member Rayner,
Approve.
and then Member Saunders.
Approve.
sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Your item will move forward to city council, for a work session, which then they will schedule for a public hearing. And we'll notify you once that occurs.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 5, rezoning 25-003. Cameron Grogan, applicant to present a request to rezone property from the agricultural, AG, and public and institutional PI districts to the medium industrial MI district. The property is approximately 40 acres in size and is located on the west side of NC Highway 61 South, just north of Lake McIntosh, addressed as 1316 NC Highway 61 South, and consisting of Guilford County Tax Identification Number 106227. Jamie.
Okay, the applicant is also present in case you have questions
Okay.
specifically for them, but I'll be happy to introduce the item to you. So this is as you said, a roughly 40-acre piece of property. It's on the west side of Highway 61. It is north of a property that you had in front of you, I think it was last year sometime.
Like in August.
In August?
Yeah.
Okay. Where there was on the south side, just over the bridge on Highway 61 as well. This area is within Guilford County. The applicant is requesting a rezoning to medium industrial zoning district. You can see on the map that's in front of you, the purple shades around are also industrial zoning. The property is within the watershed protection overlay district, so there are some restrictions in terms of impervious coverage and other uses. The property is currently vacant. However, it is within the designated Rock Creek economic development area. The city has invested in utilities and infrastructure within this area. So as a result, staff is recommending the rezoning request. You can see from the aerial, there are other nearby larger non-residential uses. You've got the Red Oak facility to the north, the Rock Creek Investments to the west. Like I mentioned, the other rezoning that was in front of you, and some other non-residential large-scale industrial type uses. Should this rezoning go forward through Planning and Zoning Commission and ultimately to the City Council, it would require an annexation request as well. But just in front of you tonight is the rezoning request. Any development that would occur on the property would also be subject to the Unified Development Ordinance standards. So included in the packet, you'll see that we've recommended the approval consistent with option number 1.
Questions from the commission?
The obvious one, do we know what they're planning to build there?
Gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Cameron. Right now, so I would develop for an end user, and right now we don't have an end user. We'll be marketing that starting right now, but as we get zoning, as Jamie mentioned, we're still waiting on water to come down Highway 61, so still a little time off. But I would abide by the permitted uses. I'll tell you right now, you know, my what I'm really trying to market to is for a data center. It would be a smaller data center, but similar to, or well, this is larger, but Amex down to the southwest of here. I've already been in contact with Duke Energy, speaking to Duke. They've already provided a letter where they could provide sufficient power. So we're talking to them. So that would be the initial plan.
Anybody on this side of the room have any, wish to speak to this rezoning request? No? What about this side of the room? Anyone on this side of the room wish to speak to this rezoning request? Mr. Bonner, did you have a question?
Yes, my question.
Okay. Got your game on, didn't I? Discussion, questions? Anything we need to bat around? Anything, Jamie? Pretty straightforward.
Jamie, I'm assuming all the same requirements, so you talked about pervious versus impervious surfaces and setbacks from what and everything, flats like the other one.
Correct. This is in a critical watershed protection overlay district, so, any properties within those areas have limitations. I believe it's up to 50% impervious coverage, just like the other property to the south.
Anybody over here got anything they want to beat around? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Have at it.
I make a motion to recommend approval of the request to rezone property from agricultural AG and public and institutional PI districts to the medium industrial MI district. The property is approximately 40 acres in size and is located in the west side of Highway 61 South, just north of Lake McIntosh, addressed as 1316 NC Highway 61 South, and consists of Guilford Tax Identification Number 106227. The motion is based upon the consistency of the proposed rezoning with the Guilford County Comprehensive Plan, in that Guilford County revised their comp plan in 2016 to include this area under the Rock Creek area and is recognized this area is identified as employment centers as development within the city. The request is compatible with the existing commercial and industrial uses in this area. This action is reasonable in the public interest in that the Guilford County Comprehensive Plan calls for the area to be an employment center. The Burlington City Council has funded public water and sewer projects along the 61 corridor and adjacent areas for economic growth, including the Western Area Wastewater Master Plan. It is located in the proximity of other industrial uses such as Amtech, Aerospace, the Red Oak Facility, Rock Creek Investments, Zinc, and BGL Logistics.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Will you roll call the vote, please?
Sure. Chair Patrick,
Approved.
Vice Chair Beasley,
Approved.
Member Mills,
Approved.
Member Spadaccini,
Approve.
Member Rayner,
Approve.
Member Saunders.
Approved.
Congratulations, Mr. Grogan.
Grogan, just like the other application, this will move forward to City Council work session, well, they will set a public hearing date. So you'll inform me once that occurs. You're welcome.
I guess we now know why everybody's here. Item number 6, rezoning 25-005. Todd Lambert, applicant, to present a request to rezone property from the conditional mixed-use residential CMX-R district to medium-density residential MDR district. The property is approximately 35.7 acres in size and is located on the terminus of Castle Rock Drive within the McIntosh on the Lake development, addressed as 0 Castle Rock Drive and consisting of Alamance County Tax Identification Number 176147. Mr. Lambert, or Jamie, do you want to set this up?
I'll be happy to. So you can see on the map in front of you, the orangish shade. That is a portion of the McIntosh on the Lake development. On the labels, it's hard to see on that map, but it's actually labeled as MX, mixed use, as is the property that's highlighted with the teal overlay, that's identified as parcel L under the McIntosh on the Lake map that's included as part of the master plan for that entire area. The applicant is seeking a rezoning request from the existing zoning of the property to change it to medium-density residential. The future land use designation in this area is suburban residential, so that would be consistent with the rezoning request. Again, it might be difficult for the audience to see, but this kind of summarizes some of the issues associated with the property. You can see that the area of the property is highlighted in this yellow overlay, and the bluish color with the hatch essentially shows water courses and the 100-year floodway. So that runs through a good portion of the southern area of the track and the eastern portion of the track. There is a stub out that exists in the McIntosh on the Lake development at the end of Castle Drive. However, there is no extension of that road right now. If you drive out there, you can see the property behind it is very steep and it slopes down and very heavily wooded. Also on this map, you'll see that there is an approved TRC plan, preliminary plat, that was approved for 343 single-family attached units. I just make mention of that because that area is essentially where I'm hovering, where Greason Lane would come in as an extension off of Huffman Mill Road. So in general, rezoning of this property would allow for additional residential development. However, it would occur at a lower density than what exists today under the current zoning. The MX zoning district has a limitation for this tract, and it's a little more complicated when you have these older conditional rezonings. So I'm not going to go into the history of the site and a lot of the details, but essentially it's going from a zoning district that also allowed for single-family, attached, detached, multifamily, and the request is essentially the same. It's just going from a conditional rezoning request, which is currently mixed use, MX, to a conventional unified development ordinance zoning district where the max density, no matter what type of residential you would put on the property, is 4.85 units per acre. Is there any questions on that before I move forward?
What is the density on the current zoning right now? The mixed use, what is the density on that?
So for the property, which is subject, since it is not developed,
Right, but what could it be under the current zoning?
5 units per acre.
5 units, so it's a slight, tiny step down.
Correct. And I guess what I'll also say is the master plan for the McIntosh on the lake development, which is commonly referred to as the manifesto, as staff, because it's only, I think, about 15 or 18 pages, but it's specific to this entire development, which I think at one time yielded out 2,200 or more units, which I believe 75 or 80% has already been developed. This is one of the few tracts that have still yet to be developed in this area. So the next map, again, this shows you the entire boundary of the McIntosh on the Lake, previously approved CMXR zoning district, which then got translated to MX under the conversion to the Unified Development Ordinance. see, what I highlighted here is parcel L, which is this parcel, which is at where I'm hovering here, on the easternmost side of McIntosh on the lake. That was designated for 5 units per acre, and that's the area that we're talking about. The next slide shows the future land use designation for this area, which is suburban residential, as I mentioned before. And that would be consistent with the proposed rezoning request. So included in your packet, staff is recommending the rezoning request consistent with option number 1 in your consistency statement sheet. You'll note that the consistency statement sheet references the MX district that Mr. Kirkpatrick has. The applicant is in the audience in case you have questions for them. Yeah. I can, navigate from here if you want, or you can take the mask.
Hey, good evening, Board. My name is Todd Lambert. I'm a principal engineer with Venterra. So Venterra is a local development company based out of Graham, but we are the owners of this tract as a parent company. So just as Jamie mentioned, site location, we're at the bottom corner of McIntosh, originally zoned part of McIntosh. Currently, as platted, is 35.7 acres. I know in Jamie's presentation, you saw some of the master documentation from McIntosh back from the 2003. Parcel L was originally identified as 25 acres, but as it got developed and plans actually constructed on the ground, Parcel L ended up being 35, just over 35 acres. So again, zoning went from conditional mixed use residential to UDO, translated all of those zones into MX that we are now. Again, asking for MDR, which is adjacent north and south of us. MDR, as Jamie mentioned, has some slight reductions from the MX and the conditional that was approved under McIntosh. So we are less dense than currently zoned. More than that, if approved for MDR, the lots would be significantly larger than currently zoned. So the conditional McIntosh zoning originally allowed for 5,000 square foot lots, where MDR would be 9,000 square foot lots. So 80% increase on the resulting lot size. Also same with the minimum lot width. So original McIntosh zoning was 50 foot wide, which is also the same as MX. But MDR zoning would be a minimum of 65 foot wide lots. So density gets a little less, but lot size and lot widths are really going to increase. So it kind of may ask you why we're asking for this. And so as we presented, we had 3 neighborhood meetings on this project. We had 3 because there were a little bit different questions that we felt like would be asked from all the adjoining sides. So we had a neighborhood meeting with the McIntosh area people. We had a neighborhood meeting with what I'll call the properties to the north, which are mostly part of the Payne family. Some are individually owned now. And then we sent out invitations to the properties to the south off of Greason Lane. 30 people, plus or minus. We had 30 people sign up on the attendance sheet. I think we had a little bit more in attendance, but at least 30 in the McIntosh meeting. We had 2 of the representatives one from the Payne family and one from the adjoiner to the north. We didn't have anybody attend our Greason Lane meeting. But for them, it was an opportunity for us to present same thing to you, why we're asking for this, because it seems a little odd when people are asking for something that's less dense and bigger lots. The answer is this piece of property is very, very difficult to develop as part of McIntosh. So the frontage that we have at the end of Glenkirk, not impossible to build a road through there, but would be very, in our opinion, not environmentally friendly and very difficult. So you're crossing at least 2 floodplains. You're dealing with the existing pond dam. And so it's not the best place to build a road to see development on this piece of property. That being said, the development that is coming off of Huffman Mill Road and off of Greason Road has an opportunity that this piece of property can be recombined with that, and then this density as part of that overall development. But we have to rezone in order to do that. So we spoke with staff originally, and the fact that it is, if recombined as is, you would end up with a split zone piece of property, just like the case that you heard first that Chairman asked, how does it get this way? So we would not want to recombine this property and it be split zone because you can't move density from one zoning area into another zoned area in the city. So even if the property was recombined with split zoning, that density couldn't shift to where you would want it to on that property. So if the zoning matches MDR, this piece of property and the property to the east that fronts on Huffman Mill Road, then that just becomes one big piece of property. They can develop the total density anywhere they would like to on that piece of property, just like they could now. Now, that will require, as Jamie had mentioned, they already have an approved plan. They have open space, they have set-asides. What that will make them do is they will have to come back with a plan revision to show how density from this piece would fit within their development. What it does is it gives us the opportunity to see the resulting density that would have been on this piece of property if it was developed in McIntosh without the environmental impacts of having to address this piece of property from the McIntosh side. Once it's developed and the density comes off of this property and is spaced elsewhere on the resulting recombined property, then this property doesn't get developed at all. So it stays undeveloped. It would become open space for that new resulting development. We would also look to, as we've spoken to the residents of McIntosh, look to keep some access easements. So many of the residents of McIntosh like to walk this piece of property. They access some of the pond from the other side. So there is a pond that is right here. You can see, you can't see on the map with all the shadings on it. There's an existing pond here. So that pond is not very accessible because these lots back up to it. But there is the ability to walk and get to the east side of that pond. We could reserve easements over this even after it's recombined so that McIntosh residents could continue to use it in the manner that they do now. But essentially, it's moving density from this piece to the resulting neighboring piece, and rezoning to MDR will allow that to happen. Neighborhood meetings, I'll back up a little bit. Neighborhood meetings were very positive for us, both with the McIntosh residents and the people on the Paynes property. Because it's easy to have a neighborhood meeting when you say, I want to rezone this property so I don't develop your backyard. Generally, people like to hear that at a neighborhood meeting, that rezoning the property will allow this piece of property to remain as it does today, wooded, and as far as the residents of McIntosh are concerned, undeveloped. Not that it wouldn't be developed, it's just its density would be on the other side of the creek, so they get to see the woods that they see now, and they don't get 120 to 150 residents coming off of the end at Lindkirk, which is what would happen if this was developed as a McIntosh piece. So this is the piece. They all kind of fade together on the screen. Hopefully your screen is a little bit clear, but I apologize if not. So this dash piece is the piece that fronts on Huffman Mill Lane, that this piece of property, once rezoned, would be recombined with to, again, allow the density that would be built here to be built in their open space that currently exists in their development. Just a quick summary, even though it's downsizing, we don't see that as a negative. If anything, we see that as the positive, and MDR is consistent with the surrounding areas and the existing zoning, along with the future land use plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Does anybody have any questions for?
I mean, this may sound like a dumb one, but if you're rezoning it to MDR so it's not developed, why not rezone it to something that can't be developed?
Well, it's not that we wouldn't develop it, it's just that development moves from the location that it exists now onto some of the easier developed land that is part of the Greason Road, Huffman Mill Road property. So the city would see the resulting 120 to 150 units. It's just those 150 and 120 to 150 units would not be on that location on the parcel. If that makes sense.
Any questions over here? I have one. What was said in your neighborhood meetings, because it all sounds great, but there's a lot of people here.
Well, I think, and Jamie, I know, I think she mentioned, I don't know if she forwarded to you. The people can certainly speak for themselves. We heard positive feedback. I know we had several residents that had already sent emails that they could not attend, supporting the rezoning. And we asked people at the meeting, hey, if you do support us, hey, come out either way. But if you do support us, don't just stay at home and hope it passes. Comes out and let the commissioner of planning and zoning, let the city council later on know that you support it. So I'm hoping we have lots of people here that we're going to wave their hands and say we support it. So
Me too. Me too.
Support it. Perfect. Support it. Support it. I've got a question for Jamie and also for Todd maybe. So it's rezoned, and the number of houses that could be built with this rezoning due to the floodplain and everything, and access to it, will be transferred to the Greason tract.
yes.
Now, has the Greason tract been, are those folks aware, I mean, has any plan been developed for that?
So there, like I said, there is an approved TRC, Technical Review Committee, preliminary plat. The land has been cleared,
The Greason tract?
the Greason tract.
Oh, he's got stuff everywhere out there.
And essentially, as I understand it, this parcel and that parcel will be recombined. So the density applied to parcel L, or the property that's seeking the rezoning, will be able to be allocated upon that new lot that has been recombined.
Yeah, so they are grading and they're working on, by their approved plan on what I'll call the Greason tract that fronts on Huff Mill Road. They're currently doing that. If the rezoning were to go through, we would recombine the property, it becomes one property. Then a revised plan will be submitted to the city. Currently, the Greason tract is a little over 72 acres. So instead of having a plan that shows 72-acre development, which is right now, it is all single-family attached. They would come back in with now, plus the 35 acres from parcel L, let's call it about 107-acre development, and they would just have to show how that density would work within their tract, meeting all the UDO requirements.
Okay. So the L tract, the one we're getting ready to rezone or requesting to be rezoned,
Yes, sir.
it won't be developed at all?
No, so the density of that would be developed, so you would have the density of that 105 acres would be spread, but realistically, because of the floodplain, it gives it an opportunity for that density to be developed on what I'll call the Huff Mill Road side of the new parcel,
Okay.
and you not have to cross, because crossing that is the same, you're crossing the same stream as Bonner Bridge Road and the large bridge there. And for this size development, that just never makes sense feasibility. So you wouldn't cross that floodplain from the Greason side just to pick up that density when you have the room to put it on the east side of the floodplain.
So in theory, you're taking the units from parcel L, moving them to the older parcel.
Yes.
So then the parcel L will not ever be able to be
Right,
developed,
because-
you'll move them to the old parcel.
Yeah, because once UDO-wise, once that density is allocated, then you couldn't come back in and subdivide it later and use that density again. So that density is gone forever. And so parcel L becomes although it's a little deceiving to say it won't be developed, it just will not be developed on that section as it exists today. So that section remains wooded, and the people from McIntosh get the same view. The Paynes get the same view. They don't end up with people on the backside of their property either. So I think that's why you see people surprisingly that are for rezoning, where a lot of times you see a room full of people that are against the rezoning.
Yeah.
And we had forwarded the emails, well, they were included in the packet that was placed on the website.
Good evening. I'm Sean Cummings, part of the development team. I want to thank you for your time this evening. I know it's, as Todd said, a pretty unusual request that we're trying to do, and hopefully we're creating new ground, bringing a lot of people to a meeting that are in support of a rezoning as opposed to normally the opposite. One of the things that we're trying to accomplish, so I'm in a unique position, in a personal position. So I'm the owner-developer of this project, but I'm also the declarant at McIntosh, and I sit on the McIntosh board. And so one of the things that's been very important to the McIntosh community that has been talked about for a number of years has been getting a dog park. So one of the things we have offered is if this goes through, we're going to give the Master Association at McIntosh an easement to create a dog park here. There wouldn't be a permanent structure. It'd just be basically a fenced-in dog park, fairly large, couple acres, very similar to the one that's up on University. That's a split dog park where you have sort of smaller dogs and larger dogs. The other thing that I know, just also having developed and built the homes in Birkdale, nobody really would be pleased at all if we came and drained the pond that exists there now. Forgetting about the immense cost to do it, I'm not even sure it's really very practical to do, but we could do it. We would get a lot less density than 126 units, but we could get probably 50 units or so. There's a huge environmental impact, tremendous cost. Again, I don't know that it's even feasible cost-wise. And then one of the things that I always hear as a developer is that we're taking down all the trees, the wildlife, et cetera. And so the Leo Terra site is already basically completely cleared, and so it can't get in a different condition than it is already. It's already been essentially fully cleared. Our site we would like to leave as pristine as possible, and so this is a fairly creative solution that our engineering team came up with. I wasn't smart enough to think about it myself. And I think it's a win-win for the community. Again, I'm not positive that Leo Terra will get all of this density either, but we're asking for the, for the amount that they could get. Again, it's a slight down zoning in terms of numbers, very slight, 0.15. But I think it's a real positive for the community, particularly for McIntosh to be able to get the dog park and then a walking trail. We'll give them an easement to the entire 35 acres. We actually would love to be able to deed restrict it, but we don't think that can be done because then you couldn't move the density over. So we think the easement's probably the most feasible thing to do for the community. And as Todd said, we tried to hold all 3 meetings. We only had attendance at the 2. And I think hopefully you'll hear from some other residents in McIntosh that they prefer this plan over the original plan. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I'm gonna do something that I've never done before. We're good right now.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this? Please.
I have a question. Sean will be surprised.
Please take the podium, please.
My name is Steve Robertson. My address is 2609 Glenkirk.
Okay.
My home is the last home at the stub station of Glenkirk.
Mm-hmm.
So the discussion regarding a dog park, several of my neighbors are right up the street. Of all of the discussions about, and we understand the plan here, but having a dog park at the end of that street, I think my neighbors would agree would be a real issue for us. You don't have parking.
Well, can I stop you right there?
Sure.
Because that's an issue for McIntosh, not for zoning.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. That's something that y'all can take up.
Sir, if you're going to continue to speak, I would just come up to the mic? 'Cause
No, that's fine.
We're not
I just-
capturing you at all.
That's what I expected you to say.
Yeah,
That's
but
fine.
thank you, though, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it was just a mention of, along with the easements, we would make those easements available for the McIntosh board to decide if that was the appropriate place for a dog park or not. But
And that's-
that's not tied to zoning, but
Right.
something we would make available
Okay.
through our easements.
So everyone else on this side of the room is for this, correct?
Yes.
And this side of the room, everybody's for it? Can I just say something to the residents of McIntosh? I have been doing this, my term, I'm like term limited. I don't know how many years that is. I've never seen this. Ever. Ever. And I applaud you for coming out and supporting a project, because typically when we see something, when we see a crowd like this, it's never good. And what y'all did tonight was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, and I applaud you. And thank you for coming out and actually supporting something.
Well, something that really helped was the developers.
Would you stand up, please, sir, and take the podium, please? Thank you.
Something that was really helpful.
Your name?
Oh, my name is Selwyn Feaster. I live at 2572 Glenkirk Drive at the corner of Castle Rock and Glenkirk. So that's right at the stub of, there on the map of Glenkirk. Something that was very helpful, and I'd just like to thank the developers for meeting with the neighborhood at McIntosh. And I live in Glenmore and Burkdale. We were heavily represented, and they were very transparent with what the plans were. And they explained it many times. And I think everybody walked away with a better understanding of what the plan was with what was going to happen with that land. And that was very helpful with us understanding and us getting on board with it, and we highly support it. And we talked to a lot of the neighbors, and you see them here, and it's a lot of positives, and we've talked about those, and I'm not going to go through all of that. But just thank you all for doing that, and thank you for hearing us and allowing us to represent our community. And we would like for it to remain safe and environmentally friendly too.
Thank y'all for representing your community. This is outstanding. Like, I'm impressed. Is there anyone else who'd like to?
You can wipe the sweat off your brow.
I thought it was gonna be for a while. Yes, sir. State your name and address, please.
Isaac Gibson, 143 Carlock Trace. Thank you, board, for listening. I do want to say that I know this is not usual, and the fact that the developer is going to let us have a dog park. A dog park is something that McIntosh has wanted for a long time, and we actually had some land cleared out that we thought we were going to have a dog park on, but actually it was owned by a different developer who said, no, you're not putting a dog park here, we're putting houses here. So we are actually excited about this. And I know that a few folks are saying, hey, or left, I guess, the gentleman that left is not happy about the dog park, but that's the best location in McIntosh for the dog park. We've looked over the entire situation. I'm on the HOA board, and so we know we won't make everybody happy, but the majority of McIntosh, I'm definitely happy that this is actually happening, so hopefully we get your approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me know when that board meeting is, Isaac, so I can sit in.
Any more discussion by the commission?
I have a question for staff.
Go ahead.
Signage and letters that went out, because I live effectively adjacent to this parcel. Maybe I'm 301 feet. I'm pretty close though, and I did not get a letter, and it's my wife and my kids check my mail more than I do at the end of Locker Ridge, so maybe they saw it, but I didn't see signage for this on my street.
So
I was curious on that.
the sign is at the end of Glenkirk Drive, all the way at where the stub is.
So nothing on Locker Ridge or Greason?
No, because there's no roadway frontage of that parcel on, we're required to put it on, where a parcel abuts a roadway. And so we're only required to notice within 300 feet. You would be surprised how wide, some of the undeveloped land is over there. And I'd be happy to check your address or anyone else's, but I don't believe you are.
I know how far it is. I've had to go find my daughter in the creek back there before. So.
Any other questions from the commission?
that is why we also ask if there's any conflicts of interest.
I mean, I don't have one, it doesn't affect me, so.
Any questions here? Is there a motion?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Could I just get clarification? Does the description originally given of the 9,000 square foot lots, 65 foot wide, is that going to apply to the total recombined package?
Yes, because the existing zoning for the Greason Lane property is MDR, so it would be a consistent zoning across the whole new parcel once they're recombined, and that would apply to all of that for a single-family detached.
Single family detached.
Right, that's for detached. For the density for attached is still the 4.85 density, but lot sizes are a little different for attached products like the townhome, so that minimum lot size of 9,000 applies to the detached houses only.
I had handed you the sheet.
Yeah, I've got it. I'm just waiting to give it to somebody who's ready to talk.
I think that may have already been this person's vote.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, we're good. Is somebody, I've got a special sheet to read for the motion if somebody's ready to make one. Come on.
I'll make a motion to approve.
There you go, read that. You can read it.
I make a motion to recommend approval of the request to rezone property from mixed use MX to medium density residential MDR. The property is located at the terminus of Castle Rock Drive within the McIntosh and the Lake Development, addressed as 0 Castle Rock Drive, and consists of Alamance County Tax Identification Number 176147. The motion is based upon the consistency of the proposed rezoning with the comprehensive plan in that the future land use map in section 4, land use of the comprehensive plan calls for the area to be suburban residential. The request is compatible with the land use plan. This site is adjacent to residential zoning districts and uses. This action is reasonable and in the public interest in that the comprehensive plan calls for residential uses in the area. The request is compatible with other residential zoning and land uses in the area. In abut to approved 343 lot single-family attached residential development. If the zoning is approved, it would allow for additional residential development to occur at a lower density consistent with the zoning to the south and east and bound to the requirements set forth under the city's Unified Development Ordinance.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. You roll call the vote, please.
Sure. Chair Patrick?
Approve?
Vice Chair Beasley?
Approved.
Member Mills?
Approved.
Member Strategini?
Approved.
Member Rayner?
Approved.
And Member Saunders?
Approved.
Motion. Is there anything else, Jamie? Yeah, no. Anything else, Jamie?
No, that is it for.
Adjourn, 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 adjourn. Adjourn. We're done.